Boy, oh boy, things are starting to get interesting. Sixer Nation, we know they are locked in on one specific free agent target, but today we got more intel on what could be a potential second option, aka a backup plan, or even a third option, or a fourth option. We got some huge intel pieces, so we will get into it all, talk about it, and break it down. But before we do that, let me know your thoughts down below. Sixer Nation, what is the one player or the one guy who could change the landscape of this franchise? Who do you think they should target this offseason? Give me all your thoughts down below. Welcome into Philly Take with RB. We give you the Sixers news and coverage every single day. So do me a favor, if you enjoy this content, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate everybody who has stayed tapped in the offseason, in what will be the biggest offseason ever. They have to get it correct right now. They can't miss again. You cannot afford that. You are so down bad. You are so desperate that if you don't get it right this time, things are going to get tragic. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about what we saw here today. First was an article put out by Keith Pompey, and he dropped a lot of names in this article, but mainly he says here that the Sixers are expected to show interest in Zach LaVine, Jimmy Butler, and Brandon Ingram. Quote, the Sixers believe they can use their draft assets and available cap space to acquire a difference maker via trade. That has led them to forward Jimmy Butler, Bulls guard Zach LaVine, New Orleans Pelicans forward Brandon Ingram. So a lot of the names have been floated around, right? And we know they're going to be linked to every free agent, every trade target. They're a usual team that makes the playoffs that has $60 million of cap space, and there are going to be more trades this summer. So of course it's going to make sense to throw the Sixers in as interested team number one in every single trade. But three names right there that we have talked about as of late. However, we then go get another piece from Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer, and everybody's talking about that today. But before I jump into that, I just want to say right here on the left, 3 years, $152 million. That is what is rumored right now for the Clippers' best offer to Paul George, right? They can offer him 4 years, $221 million, which is about $55 million per year. And on the right, as you see, 4 years, $212, that is the highest that the Sixers can go for Paul George, which is essentially $53 million per year. So if the Sixers want to go and outbid, and they want to go above and beyond, and they want Paul George, we know they are lasered in, all right? We can't deny it anymore. We can't be naive, Sixer Nation. Daryl Morey is a home run swinger. He wants another star. He made that clear in his exit presser, and he wants Paul George, right? By all indications, all rumors, he wants PG with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Now, whether I agree or disagree with that, we've talked about it. I'll hit on it more in just a second, but PG right now's best apparent offer from the Clippers is 3 years, $152. So do the Clippers and, his agency negotiate? Do they use the Sixers as leverage? And what happens there? So we will find out about that. But PG right now is still the number one target. Let's say the Clippers go with the extra year and they pay PG and they bring him back. That leads us to having to get something else done. And when you think about right now the landscape, LeBron James probably going back to LA, right? As much as I would say trade for KD if all else fails, he's probably going back to Phoenix. Jimmy Butler would be great, but probably going back to Miami. So that leaves the Sixers having to make a big decision. Who do they go out and get? And one name right now that has been highly talked about is Brandon Ingram, because he surely will be on the trade block this summer. Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, maybe they haven't been the healthiest, but they still have not got it done with the opportunity. Brandon Ingram was benched in the play-in game, and he has had some troubles being consistent over the years. So Evan Sideri posts this here from Kevin O'Connor's article saying that Brandon Ingram is the Sixers' plan B option if they are unable to sign PG in free agency. Philly can propose a trade offer to the Pelicans centered around draft picks in exchange for Ingram's expiring contract. And at the end of the day, Ingram's going to want a contract extension, so we'll talk about that. But given the Sixers' cap space right now, they wouldn't have to give up any salaries. They would just be able to take him on and give up draft picks. So do you think they should do that? Let me know down below. As it relates to PG, I will reiterate what I've been saying. PG is a perfect fit taking all other factors out of consideration when it comes to Maxey and Embiid. Like, he is that wing that can knock down shots and defend and take over when needed. But my concern is that he's 34. He's had injury issues. He's only getting worse. He's not going to get better, right, at 34 years old. And while he has been a versatile, lethal playmaker, scorer, defender, he is getting up there, and he has durability issues. So would I give PG a 2-year deal? Absolutely. If you had to push it to a 3-year deal, right, with a third-year option, would I think about it? Maybe. But I just would not go $50 million per year on a 4-year max. It just is not worth it to me. Kevin O'Connor's article today brought up some very good points about this whole situation. So he talks about, the Boston Celtics, who, by the way, are just cakewalking to the finals right now. And it looks like Dallas is going to play them in the finals. And look at what they did, for example, right? It says right here, they acquired Kyrie Irving. They added PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. A lot of people told me that Buddy Hield was by far the best deadline acquisition, when in fact it was PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. I remember Daryl Morey, when he couldn't get Andre Drummond, saying he didn't even think any other bigs were traded. Matter of fact, Daniel Gafford was traded. And look at what he's doing in the playoffs right now. But they talk about the role players around Luka and Kyrie, and then they talk about Boston with all of their great role players, a lot of guys that they have drafted, of course, but it is important to have these types of guys. And when you pay 3 stars, you cannot afford those types of players any longer with the new CBA. So I am worried about going big on yet another star. But listen to the point here that Kevin O'Connor makes. Just take it into consideration, okay? He says, one night, Paul George plays like an MVP. The next, he's an elite 3-and-D role player. This type of versatility is exactly what the Sixers need. They're looking for another star, but they need players who can fill various roles. PG is both, which is why sources familiar with Philly strategy say he is the team's plan A in free agency. And then Kevin O'Connor says he was floored by some of the responses on Twitter and Instagram. George is the next Tobias. Sign KCP instead. George is washed. There will never be a consensus on anything. I'm surprised Philly fans are not over the moon about Paul George. He's never played with a star like Embiid, and the last time he played with a speedy guard like Maxey, he turned in the best basketball of his career in OKC. Or maybe it's just more simple. And this is exactly correct, Kevin. Sixer fans are traumatized by previous failed acquisitions during the Embiid era. If this was 4 years ago, I think Sixers fans would be absolutely willing to take a risk on PG. But we are now at the time, Kevin, where there is no more room for error. Like, you have to get it right now or else you're done. And I know people think that's crazy, but you sign PG to a max, he drives to the facility, gets out of his car, he'll slip on a banana peel and be out for 2 years, right? The Sixers have those type of things happen. So to sign a guy for that much money at that age is a risk. And yes, we have been burned before. Whether it's Ben not wanting to shoot a jump shot, or Tobias Harris absolutely disappearing, or Markelle Fultz forgetting how to shoot a month before the season. So, yes, we are worried. We are traumatized. And while it does pose a very good fit, you have to take these other factors into consideration, especially with how team building is taking a toll nowadays. And you saw what happened with the Suns this season. Even if he played a reduced role in Philly's offense, his knockdown shooting is invaluable. Agreed. And this is why I said again, if you can reduce the risk on Philly's side, I'm willing to bank on PG, but not for a 4-year max. No, thank you. George shot 45% on catch and shoot threes last season. That's a higher percentage than Tobias Harris, even though George has put up way more attempts per game and faced a higher degree of difficulty. The Sixers can offer George a deal of 4 years, $212. The Clippers can give 4 and $221, but league sources say they have not offered George a dollar more than what they paid Kawhi. 3 years, $152. And I thought, again, that the Clippers would probably blow it up. For example, right? Here's a perfect example hitting you right in the face. Kawhi Leonard, all-time great player, hasn't been able to stay healthy when it matters most, has a prolonging knee injury that is always going to be there. And unfortunately, reliability is not there with Kawhi Leonard, and he's just not available when it matters. If the Clippers insist on keeping Leonard as their highest paid player while retaining long-term cap flexibility with a shorter-term contract, then he would be in the right to review his options and look for more leverage. So they talk about some more of the fit, etc., the location, which we already talked about, but this is where it gets spicy. Plan B, the trade market. Unless a surprise is coming, LeBron expected to remain with the Lakers. OG expected to remain with the Knicks. DeMar DeRozan, no. Miles Bridges, no. Aside from the pipe dream that KD or Jimmy Butler would ask to be dealt to Philly, sources familiar with the Sixers thinking say that Brandon Ingram is a backup plan, pretty much. The primary fallback plan. Ingram would have to be acquired in a trade since he's under contract for $36 million, but here's the extra. He has a 15% trade kicker that would kick in if he is traded, which would increase his salary. So that would make him above a $40 million player. The Sixers could absorb him without sacrificing any salary, given that they have $60 million, a major benefit to the Pelicans, who could then operate with cap space and receive draft picks from the Sixers. So it makes sense from both sides, but does Brandon Ingram fill that gap? He goes on to say here, if there's any next Tobias Harris for Philly, it's Ingram. He does provide go-to scoring, and maybe Embiid and Maxey, two uniquely talented teammates, could unlock him. And I do think he would be better suited around Maxey and Embiid than Zion and CJ McCollum. But is he going to disappear like he did at the end of the season for the Pelicans, right? Ingram probably should have been drafted by Philly, but I'm worried. I'm worried about trading these assets for Brandon Ingram and then paying him a 4-year max, and then he disappears and he's not that guy. I think Nick Nurse could get more out of him, but it is a little bit risky. Ingram is excellent coming off handoff and screening actions, but the Pelicans don't have the personnel to feature him at a high frequency in that way like the Sixers could with Joel Embiid. So again, I'm not completely opposed to Ingram. He's younger, right? Would have more time to improve, but he also has durability issues, and I just don't know how I'm feeling right now. But they have to figure it out. They have to make it happen, and it's got to be now, man. What do the Sixers do? Give me your thoughts down below in the comment section. Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That being said, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.